Hi, I'm Kimberlyn, and this is Storytime. I'm so glad that you're here. We're exploring yoga tales, myths, and legends, and their application to our modern daily lives. Welcome to Storytime. This month's story is the tale of Parvati. If you remember from our last story, Parvati is the human form of Shakti, as the daughter of Mina and Himalaya. Parvati is considered Shakti's most nurturing aspect. And as I promised last month, today I'll share the story of Parvati's journey to win Shiva's attention and affection. This is the story of the time between their first meeting and their life ever after, their marriage. I call it Devotion Overcoming Despair. Now began a life of intense hardship for Parvati, one that would test her love for Shiva to the utmost. Shiva spent his days alone in quiet meditation in the mountains. Each morning, Parvati came to Shiva and washed his feet. She sponged his body with a cool, moist cloth. She brought him 16 different offerings and prayed to him. Each evening, she returned to her father's palace. Day after day, she served Lord Shiva. Shiva remained deep in meditation and took no notice of her. But Parvati's devotion melted the hearts of all the other gods. Indra, the king of the lesser gods, was especially concerned for her. He decided to ask his friends Kama and Rati to help. When Kama and his wife Rati danced, the air overflowed with love's desire, and nature burst joyfully into spring. And when Kama aimed his magical flowery bow, whomever he hit became filled with love's desire. Kama, Indira said urgently, please do something. Shiva must be made to notice Parvati. Her love cannot go in vain. Of course, Kama said, jumping to his feet and grabbing Rati's hand. Rati and I would do anything for Parvati's happiness. As Kama tiptoed around Shiva and found a hiding place from which to shoot his arrow, springtime awoke. Birds sang, their hatchlings chirped, flowers blossomed, and their sweet fragrance was carried on gentle, cool breezes. Love was everywhere. Even the cruelest and most barren of hearts could not ignore the stirrings of desire. Shiva, sensing the change in the air, suspected that Kama was somewhere nearby. But before he could investigate, Parvati, dressed in fresh garlands, appeared before him. Oh dear, Parvati looks more beautiful than ever, thought Shiva. Then he looked around to see Kama peeking through the bushes, aiming a floral arrow straight at his heart. Shiva was furious that his focus and concentration had been disrupted. He turned to face Kama, and with one glance, he destroyed the magic of the arrow. Then the third eye in the middle of Shiva's forehead opened, and a bolt of fire shot forth, consuming Kama in a puff of smoke. It's a good thing Kama agreed to do anything for his friend Parvati. Rati let out a pitiful cry and ran desperately for help. The gods were horrified to see Kama come to such a fiery end, but there was nothing they could do. Determined to return to his meditation, Shiva vanished from the sight. Heartbroken, Parvati returned to her parents' house. They appealed to Narada for help. I have tried so hard, Parvati told Narada. What more can I possibly do to win the heart of my beloved Shiva? Narada answered in a soothing voice, you must meditate on his name. Do nothing but chant Om Namah Shivaya. And do not lose hope. For you, Parvati, nothing is impossible. Thus began the most severe test for Parvati. To prepare herself, she discarded her jewelry and ornaments, replacing them with simple beads. She gave away her garments of soft, lustrous silk and donned rough, hand-spun cotton. She went out to where she had last seen Shiva, her heart aching with longing. She was determined to do whatever it took to bring him back. Parvati embraced all hardships. In the heat of summer, she sat and built a ring of blazing fire. She chanted Om Namah Shivaya. In the rainy season, she welcomed the thunderbolts and lightning and continued chanting through the worst of the storms. Om Namah Shivaya. In the winter, she let the snow bury her body up to her neck, while she kept her mind pure and focused. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. She chanted over and over. But Shiva did not come. Next, she spent a year eating nothing but fruits. Then for another year, she lived on leaves. She gave up food altogether and lived on air and water. Then on air alone. Her breath could barely be heard. Yet she continued chanting Om Namah Shivaya. But Shiva did not come. Parvati's meditation calmed the beasts around her. The ferocious animals lost their fierceness, while the weaker animals lost their fear. Tigers and lions, rabbits and deer approached quietly and sat together at her feet. The plants and trees produced plenty of fruits and leaves for all the animals and birds, and the forest became an oasis of love and peace. Om Namah Shivaya, Parvati chanted. But Shiva did not come. Unable to bear their daughter's pain any longer, Himalaya and Meena came to Parvati. Daughter, it's no use. Why do you continue? Shiva does not even notice you. Come back to us, dear daughter, they pleaded. No, Parvati said, I will not give up. Shiva will come. She closed her eyes and continued chanting. And sadly, her parents turned away. As she focused her mind again, the melodic sound of Parvati's chanting made every cell in her body vibrate with energy. Om Namah Shivaya. Soon, sound energy became heat energy, and Parvati began to glow, first like a fierce firefly, then like a brilliant lamp, and finally like a blinding fireball radiating intense waves of heat. Everything around her began to warm up until all the plants and the animal and the earth itself felt scorched. And still, Parvati chanted to her beloved, Om Namah Shivaya. Even the gods began to feel that their heavenly home was becoming an inferno. They could take it no longer. At last, Brahma, Vishnu, and all the lesser gods traveled to where Shiva sat. They stood silent and humble, waiting for Shiva to end his meditation. When he finally opened his eyes, Shiva asked, What brings you here? The gods joined their palms together and bowed to Shiva. Parvati's meditation is burning up the entire universe, dear Lord. She will not give up until you recognize her love for you and marry her. I see, said Shiva. I will consider. But Shiva could not be rushed. Perhaps due to eons of meditation, Shiva felt no urgency. When he was finally ready to inquire, he decided to test Parvati's resolve in person. Dressed as an old Brahmin priest, he appeared before her. What does your heart desire, my dear young yogin, that you have resorted to such a severe meditation? Shiva said. My heart belongs to Shiva, Parvati said. My breath is hanging on only so that I can meet him." The old man giggled. "That silly Shiva, that ugly, homeless man, has nothing to offer a beautiful girl like you. He lives in forests and burial grounds. His assistants are horrible ruffians. You'd have a life of certain suffering with him. Change your mind. Even now, you have time to save yourself." Parvati's eyes blazed with fury. It is a terrible sin to say such things. It is an even greater sin to listen to them. Though Shiva knew it was rude to turn away from one's elders, Parvati turned her back on the old Brahmin. She reached to put more wood on the fire so that she could resume her meditation. But the old man reached for her, placing his hand on her arm, and asked, "Why do you turn away from me, my dearest? You are my eternal beloved. Marry me, please." Startled, Parvati looked up to see that the old man had vanished. Then her heart leaped, for in his place stood the love of her life, the one for whom she had endured the most difficult of trials. Shiva. At last, Shiva had come. "Yes," she answered joyfully, "I will marry you." To complete her happiness, Parvati wanted to tell her parents straight away. They too had endured hardship and sadness on her behalf. So she set off for her home, anxious to let them know the good news as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Shiva dressed himself as a street dancer and traveled separately to Himalaya's palace, singing and dancing to his own merry drumbeat. Meena, Parvati's mother, treated the dancer with hospitality, as was the custom. She even brought him precious gifts, but he asked for only one thing: to be married to Parvati. "I'm afraid that is not possible," said Meena. "My daughter has waited all her life to marry Shiva. She will not marry a street dancer like you. Please, go." The dancer rejected the gifts and continued to dance. "I am here to ask Parvati's hand in marriage," he insisted. Himalaya grew annoyed with the dancer and asked his soldiers to throw the man out. "Grab him," he said. But Shiva blazed with the brilliance of 1,000 suns, and no one could touch him. "Push him," Himalaya said. But Shiva whirled in place, as solid and heavy as the mountains put together, and no one could budge him. Then, all at once, Himalaya, Meena, and Parvati, and everyone else there fell under a wondrous spell. They saw Lord Vishnu with his conch discus, mace, and lotus flower. They saw the four-faced wise Brahma. They saw the three-eyed Shiva with his trident and moon. They saw the entire cosmos, and with a great swirl of bright energy all around the mysterious dancer, and their eyes were opened. Shiva himself, Lord of all gods, was dancing joyfully in the courtyard, asking Meena and Himalaya for the hand of their daughter Parvati. The devoted parents held a glorious wedding for the couple, and when the festivities ended, saw them off to the blissful Mount Kailash. As Meena and Himalaya waved farewell, their eyes shone with happiness. Their beloved daughter had finally won the heart of Shiva. So, what are our takeaways? Well, Parvati's story sparks an interesting discussion concerning how to identify and pursue the things that really matter. And Parvati is in the fortunate position of possessing a clear and heartfelt goal, that of winning the heart and attention of Shiva. But let's look at the story again to see what lessons we can glean from Parvati's loyalty and dedication to Shiva. Let's consider 3 takeaways. First, Parvati's story shows us that confidence stems from clarity and conviction. But lest we forget, remember, Parvati is the human form of Shakti, the goddess of eternal divine love of Shiva. In human form, yes, she must contend with the limitations of being human. However, Parvati's conviction benefits from the prophecy of Narada. Parvati is raised by her parents to believe, to trust Narada's prophecy for her and her destiny to be Shiva's bride. She is even specifically trained by her mother, Meena, on how to worship and honor Shiva. Lacking such prophecy and clarity, how can we, mere mortals, figure out what makes our hearts truly happy? But rather than relying on the fortune-telling of Narada, we must cultivate clarity through our own introspection and reflection. The practice of yoga and meditation supports our pursuit of clarity and conviction, just like it helped Parvati. In other words, when we confidently know our purpose, our dharma, clarity and conviction to stay the course are more readily sustainable, resulting in unwavering devotion. The second takeaway. Parvati's devotion to Shiva exemplifies an unwavering commitment. Despite obstacles and challenges, her love and loyalty remain steadfast. This teaches us the importance of staying dedicated to our beliefs, relationships, and goals, even in the face of adversity. Now, Parvati's story unfolds over years, perhaps even longer. And although we are told of Parvati's devotion and independence in her efforts, we also hear of her continued support from her parents. However, we cannot ignore that with this level of devotion comes an equally high price. Parvati sacrifices everything in pursuit of Shiva's attention. She gives up her jewelry and soft silk garments. She even gives up eating and the comforts of a home. And what of Parvati's friends and community? Where are they in this decade of trials and disappointments? Are we to believe that Parvati's success required complete separation from others? I think the lesson here is to see that this trial is but a season of Parvati's life. Upon completing her goal of Shiva's attention, she resumes life with family and even goes on to establish a home and family with Shiva. Parvati's unwavering devotion combined with focused concentration, takeaway 3, led to her success. To shut out competing distractions and focus on her intent, Parvati uses meditation and the Hindu practice of reciting a mantra, Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya is considered one of the most popular Hindu mantras and the most important mantra of Shaivism. Overall, Parvati's story in Hindu mythology embodies numerous yoga values, offering inspiration and guidance for practitioners on their spiritual journeys. However, this story, like many stories taken from ancient times, also triggers some cultural dissonance, challenges some of the values that perhaps we no longer hold, and that make this story perhaps a little more difficult for some of us to embrace. We'll talk about these conflicts as we explore the yoga principles and applications of our modern yoga living next week in Coach's Chat. Let me know what your thoughts, your challenges, and your takeaways are from this story. Do you have a sense of affinity with Parvati, or are you disappointed in her gendered roles? Let us close our connection today with a blessing. Until we come together again, may you breathe deeply, move freely, labor lovingly, and live vibrantly. May you be well. Namaste.